This is the fifth lesson and the fourth set of slides that we sort of have, building off of last week. What I sort of want to do in the next 2 weeks, this week and next week, is go over a little bit of the formal ways our reasoning work and how we're able to deduce validity, which is what we've been concentrating on. And then hopefully next week have a little bit of a look at what Al-Abhari rahmatullahi alayhi has mentioned regarding the subject, and Dr. Salim can hopefully talk to us a bit about his biography, and we can talk a little bit about him and what his work really does and says in the field of logic. But for this week, I just sort of wanted to try to come towards the end of many of the formal logical tools that we use, so that people can review this in their own time and then have a good grip with regards to this whole subject. So I want to talk about formal logic and induction, which is, I suppose, the last couple of things to cover off. And like I said, next week, inshallah, we talk a little bit about the Isavuji itself and the concept of negation, which is another important point in logic. And then after that, we really start looking into some substantive arguments, inshallah, with regards to the existence of God. And also we look at the arguments that other ideologies and philosophies such as liberalism and science put forward, and see if we can critique those, inshallah. So without further ado, we'll make a start. Just a normal disclaimer, these slides may have errors in them. They were last edited in May 2024. If you spot anything, just let us know, inshallah. So we've been assessing validity. Can anyone give me the definition of validity? Let me go back quickly. What is the definition of validity? Because we need to know this, and we need to know the definition of soundness, and then we're rolling. Sorry? It's a bit deeper than that. No, that definition is slightly off. You're using the right terms, premises and conclusion, mashallah, but that's not how they interact with each other. And we have to get this right, because this is very important. So validity is, I'm sure you'll all remember when I mention it, the truth of the premises guarantee the truth of the conclusion. But we don't actually know if the premises are true. But you are close to them, mashallah. When we get to soundness, then by that point we know the premises are true, so the conclusion must be true. Logic, what we have to fundamentally understand, is not so much about verifying whether something is true or false. It's about looking at the relationship between certain things, certain claims. For example, if I tell you 5 times 5 is 25, I'm not so much concerned as to what the answer 25, but I'm concerned with, do you know how to multiply? Do you know how to go from 5 times 5 to an answer? Do you know how to add? If I say to you, what is 3 plus 7? And you guess and you say 10, but you just guessed. Out of all of the infinite numbers you could have said, you just guessed 10. You may have got the answer right, but you didn't. Your method was not correct. That's where logic comes in. Are we taking the correct path to get towards the truth? Exactly, yes. So it's like an arrow, and I'll use this diagram later on in this slideshow. How are we going correctly from premises to conclusion? And this is where formal logic is very important. And I won't go into too much depth on formal logic, but I'll go into what we need. I want everybody to consider another definition of validity. This definition is the same as what we said before, but it's saying it in slightly different words. Why are we saying it differently? Because if you understand this second definition I'm now giving, it's going to make your job of assessing validity a lot easier. So remember, all our job is right now to do is, it's to imagine. Somebody gives us some premises, we just imagine they're true. Doesn't matter if they are or not. We just imagine they're true, and then we ask ourselves, does the conclusion definitely come afterwards? So there's another way to put that, and there's another way to assess for it, which is very important, and that is, an argument is valid if there is no possible interpretation under which the conclusion could be false if the premises are true. That's a lot of words. That seems more complicated than last time. But what does that really mean? That means if the premises are true, then if we negate the conclusion has to be false. Okay, what's going on there? So far, we've always talked about saying, imagine the premises are true. Is the conclusion then, as a result, necessarily true? Does it have to be true if the premises are true? Now I want you to think of things slightly differently. If the premises are true, again, we imagine the premises are true, same as last time. If we were to take the negation of the conclusion, we were to say that the conclusion is not what we said it was last time. Will it be false? Again, that's going to seem a bit complicated, but we're going to go to an example to illustrate that. So, we have a look at this. Okay. Don't focus on anything, just focus on the conclusion for a moment. Socrates has legs. What would the negation of that be in English? I've not actually mentioned what the term negation means in much detail, but let's see if people can sort of guess it, because we're trying to use simple English words. What does it mean to negate something? It's a simple question.
Simple English word, negation.
Something is wrong. Okay, yeah, that's getting towards it. So if I was to say spiders have... No, let's go for this one. So if I was to say a snake has legs, what is the negation of that statement? Yes, a snake has no legs. Or you could express it another way, a snake does not have legs. All the same thing. That's true, but again, we're not concerned if it's true or false. I want you now to imagine a snake with actual legs. Try this thought experiment. Imagine there's a black mamba and it somehow has 4 legs and it starts to walk. Very scary, but in philosophy you have to use your imagination a lot. This is very important. So again, we're not concerned if it's true or not. We're just concerned about what would the negation be. If I was to say a spider has 16 legs, what would the negation of that sentence be? Does not have 16 legs, correct. So if I brought you a spider and it had 14 legs, and I said this spider has 14 legs, is that a negation of the statement? Actually, let's not use that. No, that's not a good example. You're right, exactly. So if a spider were to have 14 legs, 1 leg, 3 legs, no legs, all of those would be instances where that statement would be negated. If I brought you a spider and I said this is Paul the spider, and you can see Paul has 10 legs, then you can say Paul does not have 16 legs. I know it seems very simple, but this is very important. So when we say Socrates has legs, the negation is Socrates has no legs. Now you might think negation is very simple, but Al-Abhari actually goes into it in his Isa Khuji, which we'll talk about next week, for a particular reason. Because sometimes we do negation incorrectly. For example, a good example is this. If I was to say, all humans are mortal, what do you think the negation of that statement is? All humans are mortal. All humans are? No, it's not that. But that's what people think initially. Yes.
They are not immortal.
Who's not immortal?
Humans.
All of them are not immortal? No, that's still you. That's in terms of the statement I made. Close, you're getting closer. That's still technically wrong. But look what you've concluded so far. You can say some humans are not mortal. Yes, few humans are not mortal. That also works. But there is a difference between those two statements. If I were to say all humans are mortal, that's the initial one. The negation is not all humans are not mortal. That would not be the negation. Because you only need 1 or 2 instances to disprove the initial statement. You don't need everyone to not be mortal. And this is very important. If we say, for example, but again, I'm not going to go into that in detail because I want to save that for next week, inshallah. So how do we do this? How do we assess validity using this new methodology? What do we do? Okay, we've got our premise 1. All chairs have legs. Again, we can just assume that's true. Maybe you've got a sofa at home and it's very futuristic and it's a beanie bag. It doesn't have legs. Whether that's a sofa or not, that's a whole metaphysical debate, but let's assume it is. And again, that complicates philosophy too much. So we're saying all chairs have legs. Premise 1. Premise 2. Socrates is a man. Okay, conclusion, Socrates has legs. Does anybody think that's valid? No. Uncle, why do you say it's not valid? It's?
Because Socrates is a man has legs, so it's a valid.
Invalid?
Valid.
No.
All the premises have to be.
Socrates has legs,
Yes,
but not the chair leg, but it has its own leg.
that's true, but we're not interested in in verifying whether the claim is true or false.
So that is soundness.
Yes.
What you're thinking about, you're going about the facts.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with validity is that the premises should lead to the conclusion. Is that what's happening? Based on the first and the second statement, you're coming to the conclusion? Obviously not. Where's the sense there? So remember, validity is about what is the statement, what is the argument, and what is the conclusion based on that. It could be a completely true statement according to your knowledge, according to your understanding, but that doesn't fit here. समझ में आ रहा है? Validity has to flow with those premises. The conclusion must be driven from there, not because I know it. समझ में आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा? इसको अपने ज़हन में क्लियर रखिए बिल्कुल. आज इतवार है और धूप निकली हुई है. मैंने आज सुबह ऑमलेट खाया. सारी बातें ठीक है, लेकिन it doesn't follow from that. So wrong, not valid at all. समझ में आ रहा है? हालांकि सारी बातें ठीक है, लेकिन उससे इसका क्या ताल्लुक है? आप समझ रहे? So validity has to follow in that order.
Correlation.
Premise should lead to conclusion. Don't say correlation. That's another problem. Another concept there. So just go with that. Premise means a statement, a claim, a sort of argument. Argument not in a fighting argument. जो भी आप आर्ग्यू कर रहे हैं, जो बात आप कहना चाह रहे हैं, उस बात को एक नतीजे तक पहुंचाए ये दोनों 3, 4, 15 जितने भी हैं, even one, वो स्टेटमेंट एक कंक्लूजन तक लेकर आ रहा है कि नहीं लेकर आ रहा है. That's valid. Otherwise, completely wrong. ठीक है ना?
Conclusion is invalid because premises 1 is irrelevant. Is that
Close, but no, you're right. You're very close. But the one thing I'd fix is, don't say the conclusion is invalid. Conclusion and premises cannot be valid or invalid. They don't have that property. They can only be true or false.
Exactly.
The argument is valid or invalid. So the holistic structure is valid or invalid, and each premise and conclusion is either true or false. So Muhammad Faisal got it pretty much right there. Because premise 1 is completely irrelevant, you cannot derive this conclusion from the premises we have. And a really good example is, I want you to imagine you have a child and your child's just started speaking. He's 3 or 4 years old. Maybe he's never gone outside the house. He's been home childed his whole life. You've only let him into the garden and into the house. He's never seen a car in his life. In fact, so you've kept him in the house for so long, or in a prison, he's now 21 years old, and he's never seen a car. And actually philosophers ask people to sometimes think about these examples. Now you tell him, listen, there is a car. No, sorry, you say, cars have 4 wheels. And our family owns a Toyota Yaris that you're going to inherit. What does he now know about that Toyota Yaris he's now going to inherit? What property does it have? What else can you conclude? 4 wheels, exactly. How did you do that? Again, that's what we went back to the first lesson about. That was your logic working. And that today is what we're going to examine. How did you manage to come to that conclusion? That's called a logical syllogism. And then Abhari talks about it and defines it as well, and I'm just going to give you the definition very soon. But before we do any of that, I want you to think about it this way. I want you to think about validity in a slightly different way to make the job even easier, or even more bulletproof, even more certain. I want you to imagine we bring in the negation of the conclusion. So we said, if Socrates has legs, what is the negation of that statement? What is the negation of that conclusion? Socrates does not have legs. Jazakallah khair, uncle. Now the question is, if my premises were true, is there any way this conclusion could be anything other than could not be false? So what I'm saying is, Socrates does not have legs. Imagine that claim. I want you to think of Socrates without having legs. And people don't have legs in real life, so that's not hard to imagine. Does that have to be false if the premises are true? No reason. Does the conclusion have to be false? Sorry, does the negation of the conclusion have to be false if the premises are true?
Is the negation of the conclusion has to be what?
False. If the premises are true.
It can be.
Can it? It could be, but does it have to be false?
When you say negate, are you removing the construed element to validate the premise? When you say negate, right? So you're removing the abstract of not being true to validate the premise, right?
Okay.
Because that's something maybe you just need clarity on. When you say negate, is you're eventually what you're trying to achieve is remove the falsehood from to validate it, because it all goes hand in hand, right?
Okay, I
To
see what you're
validate
going-
something.
Let me clarify that. Negating something is not making something true or false. It's just saying something is not the case. It's making another claim.
A counterclaim.
The counterclaim. And that counterclaim will either be true or false. So for example, if I say this is a phone, the counterclaim is to this is not a phone. Now, I'm not suggesting either of those are true or false. That's for you to decide empirically, is this a phone or not? How you do that is another story. Maybe you turn it on, maybe you play around with it, see if it behaves like a phone, etc. What I'm saying here is, we are trying to change the conclusion. Why are we trying to do that? So that we can try to ascertain validity another way. Everyone's got the first way of getting validity, which is the conclusion true as a result of the premises? Everyone's got that correct so far. And what did we say? We said that the argument is that the conclusion does not have to be true if only the premises are true. Because the premises have nothing to do with Socrates having legs or men having legs. Let's skip this concept for a moment, inshallah, and let's visualize this a bit more. Okay. Broadly speaking, when we make claims, especially in the English language, but this works for any other language as well, Arabic and Urdu and German, but the Germanic languages are particularly good, including English for logical study, and there's a reason for that, but we won't go into that. When we make logical inferences, they usually go through two ways of speaking or writing or basically expressing yourself. What are those two ways? Let's examine the first way. You use something called a syllogism. For example, you say all x's are y. We're going to make this algebraic in a way. Then you're going to say z is an x in your second premise, and then you're going to conclude z is a y. Now, how do you do that? To many of you, that might seem obvious. You don't even have to think about that. But let's visualize it, because I think this is a very powerful way of thinking about it. Imagine the white circle are x's, are all x's. And actually, they use this in mathematics and formal logic, because Venn diagrams are very useful. And I don't know if the kids still learn this, but we learned this at IGCSE mathematics. Set theory was something very fundamental, and it's actually very important for the study of philosophy and logic. So the white circle are all x's. What do you think the blue circle is? No, sorry, I got that completely wrong. Just ignore that. The white circle is all y's. It's the category of y. So what do you think the blue circle is? The x's. MashaAllah, very good. Exactly. What do you think the green circle is? Very good. The green circle is Z. So what we're doing is we're containing everything. We're saying that there is this category, this group of very large things. They're what we call Y. Now there are these other things. For example, humans. Let's say X is mortality. No, let's say... SubhanAllah. This terminology is very interesting. Let's say the white circle are all mortal creatures. All creatures that will eventually die and perish. So basically anything and everything other than Allah. Then we say, give us some examples. What would be in the white circle? Give me an example of something mortal.
Humans.
Jazakallah khairan, Muhammad Faisal. Good, humans. Anything else? What else is mortal? A cat. Very good. Cats are in there.
Jinns.
Sorry?
Genes.
Jinns.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's what Khair. Exactly, jinns. Anything else?
Animals category.
Exactly, animals. Octopus, fish, animals, everything. So we haven't drawn all of the circles, but you can imagine there's a red, an orange, a yellow, a pink circle, each representing something different. Cats, dogs, animals. Although cats and dogs would be inside animals, we would be inside animals as well. This is super important because what we're doing now is we're actually visualizing how we think. And what we're saying is the green circle is another circle that's a subset of the blue circle. And if the green circle is in the blue circle, then what does the green circle have to be in relation to the white circle? It has to be inside the white circle.
Mortal.
Sorry?
It has to be mortal.
Exactly, yes. So when I say there is a blue circle inside the white circle, and I say there is a green circle inside the blue circle, then the green circle has to be inside the white circle.
Green inherited the properties of white and blue.
Exactly. Perfect. And now let me give you, okay, so that's exactly, we use Socrates, humans and mortals initially. So now, when we usually talk to each other, I don't go to Uncle Muhammad Faisal and draw him a diagram and say, Muhammad Faisal, this is why I believe God exists, and then I start drawing Venn diagrams. That might not make so much sense to him. But if I was to say this, how would I articulate, how would I express what's going on in the Venn diagrams? I would say, all x's are y. So I put one circle in another circle. Z is an X. Now I put a smaller circle in the medium circle. Then I conclude the smallest circle is in the biggest circle. Again, you don't have to use this diagram, but it's a very good way of thinking about things. Now, question, what could this yellow circle be? We already asked that question and somebody got it right. Let's just mention it again. What could the yellow circle be? Reptiles, exactly. Perfect, mashallah. Everyone's getting it. So we're getting logical syllogism very nicely.
It's categorization.
It is categorization, exactly. And so, Imam al-Hariri basically defines it as the following. The first term of the categorical is called the subject, the mawdu'. And the second is called the predicate, the mahmul. The first term of the hypothetical is called the antecedent, muqaddam, and the second is called the consequent, thani. So what he's saying is basically why X's are the subject, the mawdu'. You don't have to remember the Arabic terms, but I'm just showing you that this has a basis in classical literature. And before him, it was in Greek. So you've got a subject. For example, Muhammad Faisal is our subject. He is our mawdu'. Now we're making a claim about Muhammad Faisal. Muhammad Faisal has brownness in his beard. That's a property. So now he's part of a club. Muhammad Faisal is now part of this predicate. And this predicate is the club, and that club is people with brown colour in their beards. So is there anybody else in this club? Yes, because there's probably other people who have brownness in their beards. And then what we're saying is, there is an antecedent and there is a consequent. But I'm going to leave the terminology for next week as well, just because we're running a bit short on time. But everybody gets it. So then what do we go to? Very interesting, okay. Let me give you another example, inshallah, to make it super clear. I suppose we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left, inshallah. So we have coloured things. We have inside coloured things. So let's make this very explicit. There's many ways. I call it coloured things. You could also say things which are coloured. Again, you can give it different names as long as they have the same meaning. So we've called the white circle coloured things. You can also describe the white circle as things which have colour. You could also describe the things as coloured things in the Urdu language. Now, what circles are inside coloured things? Red things are inside coloured things, because red is a colour. Green things are inside coloured things, so green is a colour. Can somebody else give me an example of what is inside the coloured things circle? Blue things, mashallah. And would you say humans can be inside the coloured things circle? Yes? Agreed. Why? Because humans have exactly different colours. You can have a mixture. You could have, for example, black hair and brown skin. You have two different colours, but you're still inside the coloured thing circle because everything coloured is within the circle. Very simple. So then you've got things like some apples, some green apples are inside green things, some red apples are inside red things. Very simple. That's syllogism. Now there's another one, and this is the only real other one we need to focus on. Once we've got this one, then alhamdulillah, we've pretty much covered the topic. And then next week we can move on to negation. And that's if-then statements. If-then statements are different, slightly different. How do they work? You usually say there's a condition, and if that condition is fulfilled, then it leads you to something. So for example, if the weather is above, premise one, if the weather is above 20 degrees Celsius, then I'm happy. Again, we are not concerned what the weather is like, in here or out there, we're just hypothesizing. We live in a world, we live in a room, we live in a place where the weather is above 20 degrees Celsius, and as a result I'm happy. Then we make another claim, premise two. The weather inside this room or outside or wherever we are in our hypothetical world is 35 degrees Celsius. What can I conclude as a result of those two premises? What new information can I learn? What new information can I say about myself? That you're happy, exactly. So I want you to think about this as paths. When we make an if-then statement, we are making a path. For example, what path have we made? There's three arrows, but which one of these arrows and circles have we made? Which path have we made? Jazakallah khairan. The top one. Because this is the only one we've talked about in our argument so far. The weather is above 20 degrees Celsius. If the weather is above 20 degrees Celsius, then I am happy. So we've made one path so far in our argument. The weather is 35 degrees Celsius. That doesn't make a path, that just affirms the top path. But again, that's not too important. Now, is there any other way you can be happy? Is there anything else that gives you happiness? Alhamdulillah, probably yes. So I've given two examples, one relevant for the adults and one relevant for the kids. If your child is born, you're probably a happy man.
As if.
Alhamdulillah, exactly. So you could say, exactly, if my child is born, then I am happy. And then if we added another premise and said, Muhammad Faisal's newborn just had a baby, then we can conclude he's happy. But if we don't say he's had a newborn baby, then we're not sure if he's happy. He looks happy now, alhamdulillah, but that might be for a different reason. Maybe he's enjoying the lesson. And then we've got a third path, and this is for our young friends. A new fortnight season has been released. Maybe, for example, there's somebody who's happy when a new fortnight season is released. So let me ask you a question. If all I have is this big circle at the end of the arrow which says I am happy, if I say, okay, Muhammad Faisal is happy, can we conclude then that he's had a child recently? No. Can we conclude that the weather is above 20 degrees Celsius? No. Because again, he could have come down a different path. And that different path is a new season of Fortnite has been released. That's what has made Uncle Muhammad Faisal happy. I don't think that's the reason, because there's other paths as well. So when you come to if-then statements, we have to be very careful that we have some new information that is the little circle on the left of the arrow that then leads us to the right of the arrow. So what do I mean by this? Imagine we just have the premise, if the weather is above 20 degrees Celsius, I am happy. And we also have some more information. Muhammad Faisal is happy. That does not mean we can conclude anything about the weather. But if we know that the weather is 35 degrees Celsius, if the only two pieces of information we know is, if the weather is above 20 degrees Celsius, then Muhammad Faisal is happy. And the second piece of information is, the weather is 35 degrees Celsius, then we can come to some new information, which is, Muhammad Faisal is happy. That's very important. But we can't do it the other way around, and everyone's just understood why that is. Now there's one last concept. Leave that, inshallah. Leave that for next week.